Welcome to By the Cottage Hearth with Dana Maree. I'll be taking you through the journey we make as healers, the impact we're yet to make, and the words to use to describe it. Come on in. Welcome back to the Hearth. This is episode 8 of the By the Cottage Hearth podcast. My name is Dana Maree and I will be your host today. Today I'm going to be talking about self-trust and modalities you can't see. This is probably one of the most common reasons that I have people in my audience reach out to me, and it is because the work that they do or the modality that they use is very much in that woo space in the spiritual side of things, where it can be a lot harder to really talk about the tangible aspects of your work and relaying the impact, the value, the way that your work can change someone's fucking life, communicating that to your audience and having them actually get it without needing to get like a free session or having to hear it from someone else. A lot of my clients or my audience get a lot of their work from word of mouth or from referrals, which is fantastic. That's great from a marketing sense. But when you look at the fact that that might be happening because a lot of their struggle comes from talking about their work. So it's really only when someone else has said, I experienced it and it was fantastic and I felt these ways, you should go. It's not a very repeatable action to take in terms of marketing. So when someone has added, I don't want to say a mundane, mainstream, a more traditional, science-based, evidence-based, there we go, I got there eventually, words. When they've added another modality to their work, a lot of the time that can come from a feeling of needing to convince someone that their work is powerful or justify the work that they're doing. So maybe you started in energy healing and you ended up pursuing massage therapy or naturopathy. Maybe you started in energy healing and you ended up doing a kinesiologist like qualification or diploma or some kind of piece of paper that made it feel like you weren't full of shit, that you had some kind of claim or evidence or backing to it. So when people said, what work do you do? You had this pretty qualification that gave some weight to your work, right? And it's completely understandable. And I have been here as well. So as always, safe space, no judgment. But now what I'm seeing is this surge in people who are wanting to bring their science or evidence-based modalities or that side of their business together with their spiritual side, with their energy work, because they've almost gone too far into the other direction. They have gone too far into the evidence or science side of stuff, that they don't feel that spark of magic in their work anymore, or they're doing these sessions using the science-based or the evidence-based modality, and what they really want to do is bring in their cards or bring in some remote healing or some energy work into a session. But because they've built this business around the other side of stuff, it can almost feel like you're trying to, retroactively, is that the right word, fit things back in. Yes, I'm self-expression communication person, obviously. They're trying to fit these pieces of the energy work in with the business that they've built, rather than having this kind of symbiotic relationship between them, rather than having this balance where you can beautifully bring these pieces together in a puzzle and it can work really well together. But if you've built your business focusing on the stuff you can see, it can become difficult to speak about the stuff that you can't. So that's kind of what I want to dive into today, and the frustration of using a modality that people can't see. So this might not necessarily just be one that you went and studied. Maybe you got your Reiki attunements. Maybe you went to a shamanism course. You've done some exploring in your own time. Your own spiritual path has kind of evolved alongside your spiritual beliefs. Maybe you took a course where you learned how to create your own modality. Creating your own modality and your own way of doing things takes so much self-trust. And I say that as someone, so I'm a practicing Wölfe, that is a Norse type of shamanism, to try and translate that the best way I can. And a lot of my practice is based on historical and folk references. So that kind of gave the framework to the way that I could do my work. I have the sagas, I have the Eddas, I have historical texts, I have other people's blogs and Tumblrs and things that they've written over time. But a lot of my work has had to come from self-trust and self-exploration. And there's not going to be a qualification for that. There's not a piece of paper. I can't say, well, I received a download, because especially in the spiritual space, there is a lot of skepticism. There's a lot of distrust from people, because they've had someone unfortunately come from a non-ethical place and sell a whole bunch of stuff that they couldn't trust. So it can create a lot of hesitation, I think, in the online space to speak about our woo, to speak about stuff that we received from spirit, that we channeled, that we were able to take and expand on and really bring into being, so we could use this modality to help our clients. And even if you've practiced with clients and you've received really good feedback, there's always this little part that's like, yeah, but I made this up, that I created this, and I need to create some kind of way to explain it to people that doesn't make me sound like I'm just full of shit or I've lost the plot. And these are the stories that can come up. So we go and get a qualification that is accepted. We practice evidence-based things, and that is not to discount the power of using an evidence-based modality like naturopathy with energy healing. Together they are very powerful, and I absolutely love that these pieces are coming together. But when it is our own insecurities, when it's our own mindset wobbles that are stopping us from really using and utilizing the energy side of our work because we just don't know how to fucking talk about it, that is a huge driver for me and the work that I do, because I really would love to see more healers out there confidently talking about their work and not be held back by the fact that they're scared to talk about it because it might not be taken seriously. So what are some of the frustrations that come from practicing an energy-based or intangible work? Some of the things that might come up is you might be talking about the process a lot. You might be talking about how you work. So this might mean giving details about how remote healing works. This might talk about connecting in and anchoring with your spirit team or with your spirits. This might come across as talking about the meditations that you take people through. The reason why we grab onto the process is because we know those pieces. And especially if you're someone who has come from a clinical background or an evidence-based background, where we take a client and we assess them and we identify their symptoms, right? And then we identify the treatment as needed for those symptoms. So we become very process oriented as healers, because I see problem, I fix problem. That is what we do. So when it comes to actually doing the marketing side or the communication side of our business, where we need to share with clients or our audience what it is we do, it's very natural to slip into talking about our modalities or our processes. So if this is something that you've been doing, I want you to stop beating yourself up about it. It doesn't mean that you're dumb. It doesn't mean that you don't, you're stupid for not being able to get this, or for struggling with this so much, because it is a very common struggle to have. And if it wasn't, I probably wouldn't have a business. So I want to give you that reassurance that you're not alone in that. What we can do about it, though, is we can start talking about what the outcomes are on the other side of our work. What is it that we want to get our clients to after we've treated that symptom? So is that symptom really the problem, or did you do some root cause stuff? Did you take them deeper into that shadow work? Did you explore further into that? What is it at the end of that work that we're actually aiming for? If you listen to my last solo episode about, the cycle of shame and using shame as a modality, you don't want to get stuck in that process or focusing on the pain point or focusing on the problem that they're experiencing, because what they want is the hope. What they want is that, okay, cool, but how could it be different for me? Especially if they're someone who doesn't even believe that a difference is possible for them. When it comes to struggling to write the outcome side of stuff, that can sometimes often does come from, a lack of clarity in the work that we're doing. If we say, well, I don't know what outcomes I'm going to be able to achieve for my clients, because it depends on the client. It could be so different. There's, my program is going to be very bespoke, and the process I take people through is very specific to them. I think we resist putting people together in a group like that. We resist combining data and case studies all together and seeing one thread, because it is not natural for us to not see a person as a person, to not acknowledge and witness the struggles that that person has that is so unique to them. And there's almost the sense of, if I combine them all into a group, there are going to be so much of their little nuances, their little side problems that they didn't have in common with everyone else. I don't want to not address that. And by looking at common themes in your work and common outcomes that you're trying to generally aim for, you're not ignoring the little pieces of your clients that are special, the little pieces of your clients that they really need help with, but you're not necessarily marketing to. You're not saying, I don't want to help them with those pieces. And so if this is a story that's come up for you, I know it was definitely a resistance that came up for me. If this is something that's coming up for you, we're not saying, and I say we as in anyone who helps you with marketing, anyone who helps you with self-expression and communication and talking about your business online, it's not about reducing that person to a problem. It's not about reducing that person to an outcome. It's not about promising the world. It is about, after working together, what is a general shift? What is something tangible on the other side of that you can help people get to through the work that you're doing? You might do other added bonus stuff on the side of those, and every session is always going to be different. But what is the outcome that is repeatable with your clients? What is the, and sometimes it can be as simple as taking the problem and just reversing it. Like, what is the complete opposite of what they are complaining with? Does that look like an outcome? They are in pain. We want them to not be in pain. Okay, cool. They are in pain, which has stopped them being able to run around with their grandkids. We want them to not be in pain so they can run around with their grandkids. And that might seem so simple, but when you're so focused on the process, simple is what you need to begin with. You'll be able to refine it. When you work with your clients, you'll be able to add to that outcome list. But just being able to have that other side of things makes it so much easier for people to understand the impact of your work, not just the process of your modality or your work, but the impact that that work can really have in their lives. Another And we're going to be honest, another reason why we might be really reluctant to speak about outcomes is because we have that mindset wobble. We have that lack of trust, bringing it back to the point of today's podcast. We might not trust ourselves enough to be able to get them to that outcome. We might have stories that come up and say, but can I really help them achieve that? Like if I say those outcomes in the copy and then they work with me, can I guarantee those outcomes? Am I really going to be able to help them? Because if I write a post, and this might be something you're doing, so if you're feeling a little bit called out, I call you out with love. If you're writing a post and you're going through the process, you know what your process is, and you're promising to take them through that process. You're promising to work on them. You're promising to take them through a meditation. The process is something you feel confident about because you know those parts, right? Because that is a controllable factor for you. So therefore, if I talk about my work, if I talk about what I'm in control of, that's fine. I'm confident. I can do that. But then when you reach over into the outcomes, that's a variable factor. That is out of your control because you cannot control the way that someone reacts to your work. Does that mean that there is no guarantee to your work? No, not necessarily. I don't want to go into the complicated side of refund requests and all the other things that come up that might be on your mind, that might be scaring you a little bit in terms of talking about the outcomes. But when you take someone through that process, even if it's been through your free sessions, maybe you've done some practicing with friends, maybe you practiced with your peers who are also studying the same modality, when you took them through that process, how did they feel afterwards? Are there any common words or phrases that if you look at all of those that they were using? Have you got any testimonials that you managed to, grab or that someone has given to you? Are there any testimonials where people have said, I felt this way afterwards? Because those are really good indications of outcomes that you've been able to help people with. And when you're speaking to these outcomes, there is only so much that we can say, this is what we'll achieve at the end of our work together. Because when it comes to healing, and this is, going into that process a little bit, we can only help a person as much as they want to be helped. And I think that's where a lot of my resistance to speaking about outcomes came from. Because I said, okay, if I help this client, if I work with this client and they are so raw and honest with me, they really want to go deep into the work together. They really want to unpack these things and explore. And by the end of it, these are the outcomes we got together. But what happens if I have a client that doesn't want to go that deep? I'm not going to be able to say the outcomes are going to be the same because the outcomes are going to be at the pace that I take that client through, that client allows me to take them through. So the outcomes might not end up being the same. So I think this is a inner resistance in a dialogue story that we're constantly combating against because we don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, but also we need to speak about what the power of our work can be working together. So if we use my business as an example, which I love to do, I'm very happy to do, I work with healers who are struggling to articulate and communicate the work that they do. They're struggling to capture the magic pieces of their work and bring it together in a way that they can speak about their work. Some of those outcomes may look like working on visibility wounds or visibility blocks. So they start feeling more confident to start posting online, because maybe they've been scared to post anything at all because they don't want to get it wrong, or when they do post, they say absolutely everything because they're scared of being misunderstood. So what happens is we get more clarity on what they want to say, and we start building up a safety net for them so they start taking steps towards showing up online and building that confidence. We've addressed what the outcome could be and what that might look like, because those are outcomes that I have helped people with, and those are outcomes that I could help people with. But I'm also releasing the responsibility on myself that is going to be 100% perfect every time in this period of time. I think that's some resistance that comes up with offers as well. You know, a lot of healers might have resistance to putting a time frame on a offer, because they might say, okay, yeah, like I could say a 3-month package, but what happens if they need more time than that? What if, you know, they're going to need more time than that? You are committing 3 months to work on this problem. And some people might be able to achieve it in that 3 months because they were at this stage, but some people might need to keep going and working with you. All we can do is come to the table, address the problem, come up with all of our tools and work together. And we can't guarantee, and I think that's the scary part, because we all want to guarantee that things are going to go a certain way. And there is so much self-trust. There is so much trust that we have to put in ourselves and our process and in our work and the capacity that we have to help people, that we have to put trust in ourselves, because we're asking other people to put trust in us as well. So if you are feeling a bit wobbly about your modalities that you can't see, have a look at those things that I mentioned, the testimonials, the things that people have said, and then look at those as the outcomes. These are outcomes that we could achieve together. These are things that we could be working on, and having that trust in yourself to be able to hold the container to get people towards those outcomes, because we don't have to take them from here. And I'm recognizing that on video you can see me gesturing with my hands, and on audio I will try and describe and use my words better. You might take them from point A, but you don't have to solve every problem that they have in their lives. Even if it is incredibly tempting to do so, to say, oh, you've got this issue. Well, it's not really my area of expertise, but let's work on that as well. It means realizing what is your lane, staying in your lane, and nurturing that client from point A to point B. They are here and we want to try and get them here. What does that look like working together? Then, once we've got that process, what that looks like working together, what does point B look like? What is the outcome that we're trying to get them to? If you are focusing on your modalities as being tools, and you're allowing yourself to draw on your lived experience, and this is going to come back to storytelling. A lot of my work does come back to storytelling. Storytelling is a powerful, powerful tool for explaining the intangible aspects of your work. So if you're really still struggling, and getting to those outcomes has been something you've really, really struggled with, I want you to start telling some stories. I want you to start writing about what your experiences were with this process, because you will be able to talk about how it felt. If you think about the five physical senses, the 5 normal senses, what did you smell? What did you taste? What did you hear? What did it feel like? What could you touch? When you're telling these stories, you're going to talk about what it was like for you before you started doing this kind of work. What was the process like? And then at the end of that, what have you been able to achieve in your life because you did that work? What have you been able to achieve? What have you been able to, well, see, I'm going to go back into storytelling because it's such a natural thing for me to do. I work in self-expression and communication because I grew up having not very many good examples of communication. Talking, yes, I can talk. That is completely fine. But in terms of communicating, talking about my needs, talking about my feelings, these were not things that I had examples of and that I had to learn as an adult. And because of that, because I did that work, because I gave myself an opportunity to explore what communication meant, I did shame work, I faced my inner demons, I worked through the wounds that had told me it wasn't safe for me to express myself. Because I went through that process, I'm now on the other side of it, able to tell someone when they've done something that has upset me and how it has made me feel, without jumping into the people pleasing, without jumping down their throat because it's one extreme or the other. I'm able to have a happy, healthy relationship where I'm able to communicate my needs or prioritize something that's really important to me without feeling like I need to shut myself down to keep the peace and walk on eggshells. So these are examples of outcomes that have come from the process of the work that I have gone through. So when you look at your own story, and this can be a really great way for you to share with your audience and demonstrate the value of your work, storytelling is great for that. Look at what you have gone through, what that journey has looked like for you, and then look at what your outcomes were from that work. And if you're finding that you're hitting a wall and you're like, well, I'm actually still on that journey and I'm helping my clients with something I'm still trying to figure out for myself, that's a really common block that a lot of healers will come up against. And sometimes it's as simple as stepping back one chapter in your story and trying to help clients where you've been rather than where you are. Because if you're helping clients where you are, you're always going to be hitting that wall and feeling pressured to heal faster or figure things out faster because your clients might surpass you in that journey. And then you get like imposter syndrome, you get a whole bunch of things that come up that tell you why you can't be in this space. So if you feel like you don't have enough tangible outcomes yet to speak to, have a look and see if it's because you're speaking to clients who are not actually that far behind you in your journey yourself, and maybe entertain the idea of, if I stepped a chapter back in my journey and I spoke about what it was like for me going through that experience, is it easier for me to speak to those outcomes there? So at the end of the day, coming back to what I wanted to talk about in this episode, it does take a lot of self-trust to work with and promote and talk to people about a modality that you can't see. And there are going to be mindset wobbles, and there are going to be times where you doubt yourself. And I want you to remember that your work is really powerful. And the way that you can help people is absolutely incredible and needed. And you heard that calling to serve. You heard that calling to help and to heal. And that was there for a reason. So give yourself a little bit of grace that you're learning how to do the marketing and business side of things. And if you need to do a little bit of healing exchanges with friends, or talking to people who have worked with you before and just hearing their feedback to remember the impact that your work can have, maybe make that part of your safety net to give yourself that little bit of a nudge to be able to take your work one step further. Thank you for listening to this podcast today. Hopefully there was a bit of aha moments. We went a little bit tangenty today, but I embrace and encourage my own tangents. Sometimes that's where the gold is, and I love and accept myself for the neurospicy person that I am. And I shall see you on the next episode. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of By the Cottage Hearth with me, your host, Dana Maree. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow on whatever platform you're on to be notified of new episodes. And you can also follow me on By the Cottage Hearth on Facebook and Instagram. Check out show notes for any links or freebie goodies that I might have going at the time. Otherwise, I'll see you on the next episode. Keep healing.